two. Count them. No Dave, but I think we've got enough to make up for his absence in the form of two very special individuals. We have longtime returning guest Brian from Rhode Island, the man, the myth, the legend. And we also have with us Tristan, who is from Boston. And that's kind of like a slant rhyme. So that
Yeah,
works, right?
well, I don't know how much
Tristan from
waffling. I don't know how
Boston.
much like if Dave waffles a lot of the time, but I'm more than happy to cover that if that's the case. I can be that role today.
Ah, good. Who doesn't like waffles anyway?
So true.
Yeah, so it's been a
Dave doesn't. Dave
while.
doesn't. Steve, we know that.
Oh, that's right. Yeah, he's a toast kind of guy.
He
White
likes
bread toast.
fucking toast.
That's
He
the
likes
back
this-
four. That's the back five of all breakfasts, honestly.
Dave respects Dave respects the iron more than the waffle. You
Mhm.
know.
Yeah, it's
Indeed.
for Dave. It's not breakfast isn't something to be enjoyed. It's something to fuel you for the day.
That's true.
Well,
That's true.
if that's not the best metaphor for Tottenham football that we could have ever come up with.
Hey, we did it.
Look at that.
Uh,
First episode. It's the
segue.
first episode of season 5, and here we are.
Season
Already done with the season.
Damn. Has it
So-
really?
Yeah. I think it's the 5th season of Wicked Spursy, sir.
Is that right?
That's incredible.
I
My
know.
goodness.
We made it.
Happy 5th birthday, Wicked Spursy.
People still listen to this?
Yeah.
Dozens.
Dozens
At
and
least
dozens.
Dozens.
At least there's at least 4 of us.
Yeah.
I think I
Hopefully
remember
6.
the episode where somebody, it was probably you, Mike, was like, I think we've got like a dozen listeners now.
Yeah, that was early on. I was
It's
like,
always been my like yardstick of civilization is how many dozens of Wicked Spursy listeners do we have now?
At least one.
yep,
One
my
dozen,
dad.
that is.
My dad.
Yeah, I'm excited. I mean, I'm a little less excited that we got the Monday game to kick off the season. I've got to get through Friday, Saturday, Sunday of all games that I really don't give a shit about before we get to the one that actually matters. But on the plus side, we did have a pretty interesting preseason. A couple of fun matches in there. We saw some reunions. We signed some players. Can I say players plural? Did we sign plural?
Oh, yeah.
Plurality of
Yeah, we said
players?
yeah.
plural. We did.
have technically 3 signings this window, gentlemen, which still time left in August.
Watch
There we
out.
go.
Watch out.
And the youngsters got a nice little run out on the preseason tour. And that's always a fun one for me in particular because, historically, you haven't really been able to watch a lot of these youth guys play. With Spurs play, it's a little bit different now because sometimes they have those games on. They just don't really do a great job of advertising them. So for me, at least, getting to see a lot of these guys in preseason, it helps build the hype train behind them. So I enjoyed that. I'm excited about some of these new signings. We do still have a couple of weeks left to bring in some more players to reinforce. We've said goodbye to some players. Surprisingly, we have actually sold people, not just loan with obligation or loan with option FC. Spurs have been busy. We could start in any number of places, but I think we're going to go from youngest to oldest and start with those youngsters because they're the future. They're exciting, and why not start with them? It's probably the last time most of them will be referenced since some of them are either going out on loan already or should be going out on loan. So let me pass it over to you guys. Whoever wants to pick it up. What did you think of the young players who got to play across any of these preseason matches, whether it's QPR, Bayern, anyone in between?
I think Steve, quite honestly, we all were watching the Swedish league last year, right? Because we
Didn't miss a game.
Obviously.
No. we were all keeping a keen eye on it. I should
Svenska.
say. Yeah, there you go.
What he said.
We were keeping a keen eye on it because we had signed what we were told was a phenom youngster, you know, and Lucas Bergvall, I don't know, what are they calling him? Burleyval? Is that how they pronounce it? But either way,
I think when I've heard classier people say it, it sounds like Bergvall. But
thank you. Well, yeah,
but I think we're going to be fully Bergvall for the rest of the
Sounds like
season.
Bergvall to me. Yeah.
yeah, it
Yeah.
looks like it. It's going to sound like it. So yeah, I think that I think that's the one for me. That was the one player that I wanted to see, to see what he could do, and he
he's good.
He's fucking good. He did not
Might be
disappoint.
one of the first names off of the team sheet at this point with game one. Maybe that's an overshadow.
Anybody? Yeah, I mean, obviously, we're probably going to see Madison starting against his old club, and which is perfectly fine. But what I'm excited to see is a guy who like him, who can come off the bench, who can contribute at a young age, and he showed he can do it in the match against Bayern. And then we get a lot of we got some Donnelly in there. We got some Mikey Moore in there. Mikey Moore, who's like comes in 16 years old. He's 16 years old and gets in Kingsley Coman's into his pants and gets his feathers all ruffled and doesn't give a shit. Kingsley Coman, who I'll say is a domestic abuser. And so that was particularly exciting to watch. I don't think these young guys, none of these young guys back down from any challenge. So we get to see a guy in Jed Spence that we weren't sure we were going to see. We had some signings, like a lot of cool stuff happened. Tristan, what did you think of our youngsters? I mean, it's very exciting to talk about.
It's mega exciting, and like everything else on theme with preseason, if anything good happens, I go, well, hey, I'm looking forward to that. And when something bad happens, I go, it's just preseason. It doesn't actually mean anything. So
like anything Emerson Royale did.
Exactly.
I'm not gonna. We won't stomp on his.
R.I.P. Yeah,
R.I.P.
a little bit too
It's
soon.
problem now.
No Emerson Diggs this episode. Maybe we wait a couple weeks.
One quick aside, I encourage everyone to read the let's call it the Tottenham obituary for Emerson Royale in the Athletic today, because the headline is something to the effect of victim of an unlucky victim of Tottenham's managerial churn, and that is exactly right in my opinion. So, but I'm sorry, Tristan, but please continue.
Much appreciated, but. Yeah, I mean, you bring up a great point in Bergvall. I think, like right now, this season, Madison has a lot to prove, and I think he'll be realizing that, especially with a guy who is so similar to him in his game style and the way he plays the game, that hopefully this lights a fire under Madison's butt. Like the Bergvall effect could be nuanced in that he's a great player on the pitch, but also elevates everybody else to play a bit better, and I think maybe at least we could all partially agree that Madison had been a bit lackluster in recent games. Whether or not that was injury related, remains to be seen. But I feel like that wouldn't be unfair to say. But I mean, Mikey Moore, I think, is maybe the number one topic in all this. One, because I think this club has been lacking a youngster who came up through the ranks, and we really saw him. It's been quite some time since there's been a player like that. So there's that aspect of it. But he scored a lot of goals and looked really good against good competition. And I think
the last one now plays in Germany somewhere, I think, actually.
Yeah. And exactly. I don't remember his name, but Reggie or
Florida.
Harry.
All I know is Mike has done a full, excision of his name and memory and all the career-setting goals he had for this club. But that's fine.
I need that operation myself.
Harry. Yeah.
But yeah, I'd end it with Mikey Moore, hoping we get to see him in the first team. I know he just signed a big contract with the club, which I was really happy to see. But I hope that we get to see him in some competitions this year, be it Europa or be it FA Cup early stages. I think he's earned that chance. But
So we talked a little bit about the youngsters coming up, but there's one young player, Brian, that I want to pick your brain about in particular. Was he the first signing that we made this window? Our good little Archie Gray.
Oh,
He played in a couple of different roles in the preseason. He was center back. He played fullback a couple of times. That number 6 role. What do we make of him?
I think he said to a journalist, right, that he had never actually, even in youth football in England, he had never played center back in his entire life. It was just like, is this some kind of like and chasing? Is that like I was?
It feels like a real thing, doesn't it? And chasing feels like a very real
feels
thing.
like it might, and if it was going to exist for any Premier League manager and have it be not fully tinged with sociopathy, I think it would be Ange. You know,
You just signed. We don't have any center backs. That's your spot now.
I mean, and he'd probably give you some like Australian aphorism, and be like, every man up, mate.
Get out there, mate. You can do it.
Hey, resilience.
I honestly thought it like early on he was just leaning into that like that we're going to attack at all costs, type of a thing, and
even our center back even our center back is an attacking midfielder.
Yeah, right. Like everybody, but it was just obviously for lack of options. But go ahead, Brian. I mean,
but he's actually I know we'll get to Solanke later. But on the topic of the youngsters, being half Swedish, I was obviously all about my boy Bergvall. And we do have a friend of the pod who does listen every week, who lives in Sweden, who has confirmed on the ground that the kid is legit Bergvall. But I have to say, actually, I did a deep dive on Archie Gray, and because it's a decent amount of money to lay out. The amount that we spent on Bergvall was actually fairly inconsequential in comparison, although apparently the kickers for success, which who cares, are pretty lucrative for his Swedish side. But I think, man, I think he has the capability to be a Sarr-like signing, in that when he is out there, I think he makes everybody better. Like, I think we all felt that when Sarr was like when the start of the season last year, when Sarr was out there, even the advanced stats didn't really express what was happening, but we all felt that the whole team was better when Sarr was out there, and it was less good when he was not out there, assuming he was healthy. And I think that Gray has not only all of the other fun things about being creative and great at pressing and a bunch of he's great. He ticks a lot of boxes, but just watching some of that preseason stuff, he gives me that feeling about Sarr from last season, about this is possible that everybody's game is going to get leveled up because he's out there. He just is, I think, a great utility player in so many different areas. I'm very excited about Gray.
I can tell you that that last died.
What?
What? I don't know what the fuck happened, but he just lost his breath all of a sudden.
Oh, no! You just did.
You literally
froze. So for the listeners out there, Mike was apparently in the middle of a soliloquy about something where it looked like he may have died, but for us, it looked like Mike had died or had a stroke or an aneurysm or something.
Here's the thing about this new platform: is it has already recorded everything, so there was no freeze. It only froze for you guys.
Okay.
We don't use Zoom anymore, kids. We're not our grandparents. So,
Sorry, Riverside.
This is not your grandfather's Tottenham Hotspur podcast.
So anyway, well, it's still actually maybe, but no, I mean, what I was saying is like, we might have actually thought that he died. I don't know what happened. Like he doubled over, gasping for breath, and then all of a sudden, out of nowhere, he's just serving up one of the nicest fucking passes to Decky I've ever seen. Like you said, Brian, the guy is out there. He makes everybody better all the time. Yeah. All the time, no matter where they're putting him, he's gonna really put. I think by the end of the season, if Madison doesn't watch out, he's gonna put Madison out of a job. Yeah.
I think I saw something like one of the tweets when we signed him, or you know what? I don't use that crap platform anymore. But one of the threads I saw was
There we
like,
go.
but is he ready though? And I don't know. I mean, it's what they say with investment firms: past performance is no guarantee of future returns or whatever. But based on preseason, if we're asking the "is he ready" question, he's ready.
Yeah, I mean the
I think
physicality
this is
is
going
the
to be fun.
biggest question mark for a lot of players coming into the league, and for me, without a doubt, I mean the physicality was there, for kids, teenagers. They're built, they're strong, they're riding these challenges, they're holding players off, they're picking their passes, they're smart, and they're humble too. I mean, Mikey Moore had this interview. I think it might have been right after he signed that contract, where he just comes across as this very humble kid. Like, I haven't done anything yet. I'm just here to learn and to grow and to develop. And that I think that speaks a lot towards that sort of mindset that Ange it has been really pushing out there since he signed. There is one other batch of youngsters that I want to touch on, Mike, and I'm going to pass this one over to you. When we started preseason, we had 3 young forwards to put out there, have some time, spend 15, 20, 30, 45 minutes out there running around. Of those 3 young players, 2 of them have been sent out on loan, and we're left with one. What is it about Will Langshear that has him right now above Dane Scarlett and Viejo?
Alejo
Uh,
Veliz.
Alejo
Veliz,
Veliz?
yes, in the pecking order.
I honestly, I think it's maturity. I think it was his performance in the PL2 last year. Um, winning the Golden Boot it's that's no small task, even in the U21s in the Premier League. That's a super physical league for youngsters to come out of, and I think that he's not necessarily he's more of an Ange type, um, center forward or striker, if you will. Um, he's more of an Ange type goal scorer. He's not that typical Kerry Hayne, HK10 type of a hold up in the box type of a player distributor. He's a little bit of a dribbly boy. He can. And he's got a foot on either side, and he can kick the ball, man. He is your prototypical goal scoring center forward, and I think that works well for Ange, as long as we're going to be able to distribute the ball to him, and maybe he breaks through into the first team. I don't know that he does this year. I think maybe he stays around though, just in case. We have a kid that we haven't mentioned coming in January as well, who's also who's an exciting young forward from Korea. So I mean, I like Will Langshear, and I think he could be the future of this club. And you never know what's going to happen with Ange. It might be a situation where down the line we use a 2 up front type of a situation.
It's
Yeah.
huge for every player we've just mentioned that this club stays in as many competitions for as long as we can. Obviously in later stages you start to see more of a polished first team, but again, it's so important that these guys get actual first team minutes. And I also love Will Langshear, another guy I hope to see come up through the ranks. As of like 4 days ago, that job just got insurmountably harder with some new talent that we've brought in. But still, it's like he is somebody who I'd love to see in an early cup stage. They all look so hungry. And to cap like the youth conversation off, it feels like we have the team that like Todd Bowley thinks he has. Like he thinks that he could sell all of his young guys for this crazy profit. If
like
we
that.
just switched ownership and all of a sudden Todd Bowley was sitting up there near the giant golden rooster atop the stadium, we could buy Real Madrid with the wealth we could get from the squad. I hate even pretending to look at it through that lens because that's so the opposite of what Spurs football is all about. But I mean, never ever have we ever had a youth core like this. I feel like that's a very easy thing to say. Would anyone disagree?
I mean, I think the last time we had this was, and I mean, part of the reason Pochettino got signed was, I think Levy was under a lot of it's one of the reasons I actually had years of respect for Levy, was that he was under a lot of pressure from fans and the media to go get what he ended up doing later in getting the kind of Antonio Conte types who had played at who had managed at big clubs and have won European championships and things like that, and domestic cups and all that stuff. And what he went with was a guy who had devoted a lot of TLC to the Southampton Youth Academy, right? And so I think the last time that we had like this level of excitement, and I would actually even say your average fan's knowledge of what the hell is going on in the Youth Academy, the last time that was true was probably like the year before the last year of the Pochettino era, right? I mean, and should be noted, by the way, Spurs being in the overall excellent financial health that they are, despite having signed a lot of expensive players and not sent that many people out for much money, which is it's a little bit of a concern. But at that time, in that era, they made a shit ton of money off of academy prospects. People that, probably only Steve actually really like knew their names properly. But
Steve, maybe.
maybe. But anyway, yeah, I think that was the last time I was like really invested and excited in the academy, was kind of the end of the Pochettino era. And this is, I mean, I think like, listen, like this is like grabbing a phrase from my day job, which I don't even want to bore you guys with, but the organizational alignment that you can kind of just feel from reading the news coverage of Tottenham Hotspur is fucking incredible, right? I mean, from board to most important person of the club, which is arguably Ange, to the youth academy, like the managers at all of the different U levels, right? Everybody is on the same page about what we want to do, how we want to play, how we want to develop, develop talent. And also he's showing that, yes, if you do this, if you buy in and you perform well, see, Will Lancashire, see Mikey Moore, you're going to get first team playing time as a 16-year-old, I guess Will Lancashire turned 19 in April. I thought he really,
I mean, let's take all this shit that we were hearing last year of Ange won't play the fucking kids and toss it. I mean, and myself, Steve, were both, Dave, we were all like guilty of it. Like, why the fuck isn't Donnelly playing?
Mm-hmm.
Because of the way he's performing in PL2 in the U21s. Why isn't he playing? And, Ange has his way about things. We know that each year things get added in, things are a little different. And I don't think in my little bit of research that I've done, he hasn't really used a lot of the youth academy players, but I think he understands and he sees what he's got there and the way that the youth academy has been built. And I think it's phenomenal. So
yeah, and you got to keep in mind as well, as a young player, when you do get those chances, it's up to you to take them. And, it's not something that you perform well in a single game for 10 minutes. You've earned the right to start, but it does keep you in the back of your manager's mind. Maybe you get to sniff around, sit on the bench a little longer. If an injury comes up, then maybe you do get that shot. And again, it's up to you to take it. But from what we're seeing, especially in a lot of these interviews with the younger guys, they've got good heads on their shoulders. They just want to do the work to show that they can do it, that they can handle it. And honestly, even the ones who get sent out on loan, it's not the end of the world for them either. It's a great learning opportunity where they can potentially be that main guy. So I think the way that we're handling youth going into the season, it's got me excited. I'm going to prompt the three of you with something, and I'm not going to ask the question right away, but I want you to think about it right now.
You're such a tease, Steve.
I know.
Yeah, what the heck,
I know. But I want to give you time to think about this. So I'm going to prompt you.
Okay.
And then I'll pivot to a different question.
Are you gonna play
And then we'll
Jeopardy
come
music
back
in
to
between? Okay. Sorry.
For like 30
Maybe,
minutes.
I don't know.
Yeah. It's just what. And now this is now officially a white noise podcast. I'm sorry,
And
Steve.
now
Go
for
ahead.
something completely different.
And now for something completely
All right, so my prompt for you involves the full squad, young, old, new, returning, doesn't matter. Most impressive players during the preseason, least impressive players during the preseason. And while you guys are thinking about that, let me ask this. Hey, Mike, what you drinking?
Oh, you son of a bitch!
Oh, that was
Oh,
a
man.
master stroke.
Reversal dunk.
That-
That was off the backboard.
Holy shit, that
that's off the
was
backboard. Nice.
Gotta
like
catch him off guard. You gotta keep him on his toes.
I did
Like-
not see that coming.
like many of the French players' 3-point shots in the gold medal game.
That was the Emerson Royal no look pass of setup.
Beautiful pass.
And you told me
to-
I was too soon on it. Boys, you know what, Steve? You know what? I love it when you ask that question, and that was a great one. I was just in Pennsylvania, central
sorry.
Pennsylvania.
My apologies for that.
That's perfectly okay. I was there on vacation with the kids. We went to Hershey Park. So, being that we were in Hershey, I went to Trogs. Trogs, however they want to pronounce
Trogs is right.
I think it's
Yeah.
pronounced chocolate.
it. I was, I had been wanting to go there for a long time. I've heard tales of the amazing libations that they create there. We went there. The food was decent. The place was packed. It was impossible to get service anywhere or a table. And quite honestly, I'm an IPA guy, and the IPAs were less than stellar. So,
Which is ridiculous considering Pennsylvania, PA, it's right there. They're 2/3 of the way to IPA, and they couldn't get across.
they
the finish
couldn't
line.
get there. So, when we went into the bottle shop as we were leaving, my wife got a nice T-shirt. The kids, wanted stuff that said "I heart beer" on it, but we said no. You're 15, Lily, not till you're 16. And Lucas, you're 12. All right, we'll get you a 4-pack, and that's it. But no, I picked out something different that I hadn't had there, and I think it's very apropos for this podcast, as we have two of our new members of the Wicked Spursy team. Well, Brian's always been a member, but Tristan is one of our new members. And this season you're going to be seeing a little bit different setup. One of us.
I'm just now realizing what that looked like in the camera. Sorry about that, everybody.
That's why you do it with two.
Exactly. A little visual treat for only the members on
Wait
the
a
podcast
second.
right now.
You got Tristan right beneath me.
For the Patreon.
God, no. The
For
optics.
the Patreon comes in the 6th season, Tristan.
Right. Okay. Okay.
So this is a Czech style Pilsner, since I'm leaning into my Czech heritage and not my Irish heritage right now. This one's called Brothers Gotta Hug. So that's why I think it's apropos for this podcast, because now we're all brothers in this Wicked Spursy journey.
Cheers to that.
Amen.
I'm gonna pour it into my nice Pilsner glass. I love Czech Pilsners. They tend to drink a little heavier. They're a little darker than say like a German Pilsner. German Pilsners are very, very light. They're very, very yellow.
Organized.
They're very organized. Czech Pilsners tend to be a little bit like maltier. That the nerds would say breadier. And they tend to be a little less like light beer tasting, a little more body to them. This one has a nice, like, typical soapy head. Look at that. Isn't that beautiful? It's a little darker than a yellow Pilsner, German Pilsner, American Pils. And typically they have a little bit less carbonation. So we're going to get into this. I love Czech Pilsners. They're one of my favorite styles of beer. But I'm very excited about this.
That is a very different drink than what I've got. And I know nobody asked and nobody cares, but I'm going to share anyway. I am drinking tonight this delightful little number, if I can get it. Well, it's hard to read. It says Betty's Blackberry Cobbler
Ooh, sour.
from Zool Beer Company out of Knoxville, Tennessee. It is delightful.
Let me guess. Your sister just hooks you the
My
fuck
sister
up.
hooked me up.
God damn it!
Between this and the strawberry cheesecake sour.
Oh, that sounds good. See, I'm
Oh,
with you there,
raspberry.
Steve. I would definitely split one of those with you. Like, I think that would be a delicious dessert beer, a good summer day
Ah,
beer.
So good. So
These
good.
guys love their sours. Brian has the hop allergy, so he's
Yeah.
he's
If
on
you-
the wine and the booze these
If
days.
any of the listeners of our dozens of listeners could explain to me how someone who is half Irish, half Swedish could end up being allergic to hops, I would love to hear it. But
That's messed up.
I am. My wife can't stand buttery Chardonnays. Just will not touch them. They're like she likes all other kinds of wine except for that. And so we happen to have one as part of this like wine delivery service we got. And so I'm drinking a Chardonnay.
Your wife
lovely
is
Chardonnay.
is one of the loveliest people I've ever met in my life, but I've just lost a little bit of respect. That's okay.
I'm just
you know.
trying to figure out what sort of war crimes Brian committed in a past life to deserve that allergy.
Listen, man. McGurk means son of the red-handed. So, and it was
Whoa.
like literally the crest. The crest of the McGurk family like thing in Ireland is literally like a dripping blood red hand. It's
Look,
very
I'm all
creepy.
for exploring your lineage, but in your case, I wouldn't want to dig too deep.
Yeah, let's
in
just
case you
call
find
it-
something.
Yeah, let's just call it. Let's just like stop at a certain point back in time, you know.
Yeah,
Yeah,
how about we check in with Mike and his pill plan?
Ooh,
Dude, I'm going to tell
nicely
you,
done.
I am actually absolutely loving this beer. It's a little less malty than I hoped it would be.
Wait, do we have
but
a chat? Can we put our guesses in a chat? Hold on.
I think you're gonna have to throw it on the WhatsApp because I
Okay.
don't think we figured out how to do the chat yet. So,
Okay.
Tristan, I know you've been on the show one time,
Sure.
and we do a rating based the 1 to 5 scale, and you guys have to guess what I might be going after here.
I did that thing, which is a horrible habit, and this be a lesson to everybody. I just pretended I knew what everyone was talking about in the whole chat thing and guessing the rating. So I was just going to go along with it and hope I could play it off. But thank you for offering an explanation. I should have just asked.
This is, I mean, it's got a little bit of like lemony, lovely. I really enjoy this beer. I would drink a lot of these.
No looking at your phone, Mike. No looking at your phone.
My phone is on the desk here.
Okay.
I
Yeah.
submitted my guess as well.
Okay.
Okay. I'm going to say 4.5.
Oh,
Think
Yeah.
where Brian was closest.
And that they know this might be one of my top years. It's funny because like I did
Tristan,
not like any of their fucking IPAs. I thought they were all fucking mid, as the kids would say these days.
For the record, Tristan could edit his WhatsApp message because he wrote 4 out of 5. Being new to the podcast, he could edit it and replace the slash with a dot, and he would win the prize here.
Yeah, I didn't mean to do that. Oops.
Oh
Sorry.
yeah. Oh okay.
Guys, I don't use WhatsApp a lot. I'm not really great with it. Sorry.
The only one who's ever I think hit it on the head was Ricky from the Fighting Cock. So
Well, now I like have a gauge that you will give things like a 4.5 if you do really like it, and I figured I would play it kind of safe with 4. I didn't want to overshoot it, but this was informative. So
I rarely go over 4. This is one of the best beers I've ever had.
okay, wow.
Yeah, it's pretty outrageous.
Guys, tonight is special for many reasons. I mean,
For many reasons. Brother's got a hug, you know.
Well, you did say that was a Trogs, right? I'm glad that there was one that you could walk away with that you really liked. You know.
Yeah. The rest of them, like I said, were mid.
Yeah.
As the kids would say. But yeah, and typically Steve and Dave make me do a song. I'm gonna ditch a song this time. I don't. What you okay? Dirty Deeds Done Dirt Cheap. AC/DC.
yes.
Straight
Oh,
up.
that's good. I was gonna say
Yeah.
Dirty.
compared
It's
to
a
Guitar
dirty.
player.
It's a dirty beer. Oh, that's a great idea.
I mean, maybe not a direct comparison, but like, what is it giving? Is also the kids say.
4 point. Well, a 5.0 would be on the scale would be like a 5.0 would be like a Musa Dembele, right?
Yeah.
Or a Kerry Hayne.
Yeah.
Okay.
Musa
Yeah, so that means like a
Dembele.
4.5 would be like Christian Eriksen.
Yeah. Oh, that's good. Wow, that's high praise. Any Tottenham fan knows that.
You son of a bitch! How dare you rate Christian Eriksen that low?
One of our other contributors that we're going to have on in the future too is a guy we love to call Nicky Winks. He has an affinity for Harry Winks. Calls him often an angel. And
Sometimes calls him for a bedtime story.
he does.
Match week
and
1 is going to be a difficult experience for him. It sounds like.
It is because my boy Madison is gonna show up.
I hope so. I do hope so.
Yep, and Nick might never ever want to mention Harry Winks again. So anyway, let's move on to the second part of the podcast here because
Yes, I hope
we have signings, we have ratings to do, we have lots of fun stuff.
I mean, by the way, I just need to go. That was the smoothest, most surprising intro to the Mike What You Drinking, maybe in the 5-year history, and dozens of thousands of listeners of all time. I think they would all agree that was nicely done.
Like Steve came up from behind and like kicked me like in that old school like arcade kung fu game. Like
cool
jump kicked me from behind.
It was cool that I could be a part of this.
You say that, but the image that came to mind was just Bobby Hill from King of the Hill. That's my purse. I don't know you. Anyway, I hope people had time to think about my my prompts because I'm excited to hear what everybody thinks. Let's start with our top performers of the preseason. Who were the players? They could be players we've already talked about, and the young guys. They could be completely different. Who impressed you the most? Top 3, if you can get there.
I can go first.
Okay.
I can go first. Who impressed me the most? Decky. 1,000%. He's playing in a position that he.
Who else had him first?
I would have put him first, probably.
Yeah, 4 out of 4.
I think, and it's not necessarily because of his skill or the way he plays, but it's the fact that like he was thrown into a position where Andrew's like, I gotta fucking try something. I can't put Sonny back in there, right? I gotta try something. Are we gonna sign it? Are we gonna sign a center forward? Is Decky gonna have to be the guy? He holds up well in the box. He's not necessarily great in the air, but he holds up well in the box. He can distribute when he needs to. So I think Ange said, let's give this a shot. Like he gave him the shot at the number 10 last year. He put him in the 6. He put him on the right wing. He played on the left wing for a game last year.
Mm-hmm.
I think that like Decky, and I've always used this term for a lot of the Vermont Green guys when I do my other podcast, plug. But like he's a Swiss Army knife, right? Like he's got a fucking bottle opener, he's got a nail clipper, he's got a toothpick, he's got a little bit of everything, and throwing him into that center forward, that position that like is so revered at Tottenham. Look, man, like that's not an easy task to play. That's not an easy position to play and an easy task to pick up. And I think that he did it, and he showed that like I belong in the squad and I belong at Tottenham. Like, because there was some talk that if you're going to get the right number, we should easily sell him. But I don't think I think he's so versatile that he has to be the guy for me.
His game, I think, naturally lends itself well to the attacking midfielder position. Maybe it wasn't something I realized till I actually saw him playing it regularly, but I remember there was a game 1 or 2 weeks before Christmas last year during the festive period against, I think maybe it was Bournemouth, one of the clubs that was maybe favored for relegation. But I remember seeing him in that role that game, and it looked so natural. And this isn't to take away from Decky at all, but he's not really a guy who wants to take a guy on. He doesn't really want to beat somebody in a race. He doesn't really want to sprint towards goal full speed. Not that he can't do that at times or deliver a good cross, but I think it was kind of a huge blessing in disguise putting him in that position. And not to drag Madison back into it, but earlier I mentioned like Bergvall being the guy who will like light a fire under Madison's ass. Look, if Madison doesn't figure it out this year, there's really two excellent choices that we could have in that role between Kulusevski, between Bergvall, obviously not knowing how it'll pan out when the first actual serious ball is kicked. But I mean, he's given us everything. He never has he looked so skilled or good on the ball. And I really hope he can bring that into the season. Cause I was one of the fans who was maybe on the side of Mike, if we do get the right number, it would be silly not to, but
Right.
I'm glad that it didn't pan out that way. Really. I feel like there's a lot left that he can offer this club, and he can play a huge role, a part of our future.
Yeah.
Can I just note, just for the record, just on this topic, that a good buddy of mine who is a sometime listener of the pod, and a buddy of mine, Marco, is obsessed with Juventus, and he is literally like walking around just so pissed off, like all the time. He's like, because he was like, "Thanks for taking out our trash," I mean, he was like really was very dismissive about this transfer, and he was very relieved to have gotten rid of what he saw as an underperforming
one start against Man City later, he flipped that turtle on its back, didn't he?
Yeah. But I mean, I think Tristan nailed it. But I just like talk about someone who has really, we hear all the stuff that Ange says about season one is about getting the players to buy in and to understand and to really kind of start to manifest like, what his style of play is all about. Is there a player that, even though he was a Conte acquisition, it comes out of the Italian leagues and stuff, is there a player that feels more bought in on Ange Ball than Decky? I'm not. I mean, that's a conversation unto itself, but he would have to be listed in the participants.
Yeah,
and again, for it to not really even be, maybe Ange Ball to not necessarily fit all of his strengths, even then he still always looks very bought in, and it says something that a guy's even willing to play multiple positions, because we've seen how that goes when it doesn't go well, and guys demand exits. They look like shit on the field, and he is always trying. That's for sure.
Yeah, the work rate he displayed, even in preseason games that are pretty much meaningless, is just unreal. The amount of running that he's doing, even in the disgustingly hot, Korean summer, it's just insane. He does not stop until he's physically.
I used to call him the Shark.
Yeah,
because he kind of does look like a shark too. In a weird way.
He just swims and eats and makes little sharks. Is that
Swedish shark? There we go.
He's the Swedish shark.
Move over, Swedish fish. All right, but who else? Was there anybody else who impressed?
I was very disappointed the whole preseason. Just
everything about it sucked.
No, I don't understand, probably because I'm not English or Welsh, and maybe because I just don't know that much about soccer. Also, absolutely a possibility. The hate that everybody put on Brennan Johnson last year, I thought was preposterous. And by the way, I in the lead up to this pod, I did look at it. I'm not going to quote you numbers, but I'm just going to say he had a perfectly lovely season last year. He was great for us. It was not, I don't think, ever meant to be that consistent of a starter in his first season, and he stepped up and I think did really very well. Created a lot of chances. He was energetic. He used his pace really well, played that position really well. I think he bought into the system really well. I think everybody likes him. Seems like a good kid. And I'm 41 now, so anyone who was born in 2001, I can absolutely call a kid now. I literally did my gap year when he was anyway. Anyway, regardless, I think Brennan Johnson, so I think about, we've got a healthy Madison, we've got Archie Gray, we've got Bergvall. They're going to be creating chances in the box. and we're going to have Solanke and Brennan Johnson and Sonny finishing them. Guys, you heard it here first. We're winning the league. Like, that is
Holy shit.
If those guys stay healthy, but think about it, like, this is what I with these signings.
Dude, don't pull a Flav Bateman and start a like, could we shit?
No. But honestly, the chance creation is going to be out of control, and we now are going to have Solanke, Sonny, two of the best finishers in the Premier League. By the way, right there, that's like literally, I think Sonny's number 1. I think Solanke's 3 or 4 or something like that.
I mean based on Sonny was number 1 based on like XG. Yes.
Yeah.
He always outperforms his XG anyway.
Right. He just absolutely clinical killer.
Which, some people just kind of discount that.
Yeah, some people that we're friends with actually in common.
Yeah. No, we're not going to mention his name or their name.
But what I'm saying, anyway, long story short, to go back to your question, Steve, preseason, like being impressed. I just love Brennan Johnson's pace, his ability to get into the box, and he finished a couple of really nice goals in preseason. And this is mostly a compensation thing for, I feel like he was really mistreated last season. I think he's going to fucking crush this season when he gets actual rotation because people are going to be healthy. And we have a deeper squad, right? We have people that Ange has a lot more faith in. He's going to have a banner year. So that's my vote. It's Brennan Johnson. I was here early, and I've never left.
Well, okay, so obviously we've all established that Kulu would probably be our common number 1 pick, and this was a guy we did mention at the start of the pod, but I'd probably go Archie Gray. He almost seems destined to be the most low profile signing we've made, and he could very well end up being the most useful signing that we've made, or seeing the most minutes, because man, has he, as you described, Brian, looked so capable in the midfield, and so, again, willing to play a multitude of positions, but just looking very, very comfortable. That's, I think, a thing that anybody can notice, regardless of how much football they've watched, is when a guy looks kind of panicky on the ball and when a guy looks really just calm, cool, and collected. And he exceeded his age expectation very much. I think we have Leeds to thank, one, for selling him to us, but also for giving him so much regular first team football. We all know how loud the championship is and how high level it still is and how physical it still is. So, I mean, he comes in a very, very seasoned youngster. It almost feels like an insult to call him a youngster, but I'd go Archie Gray in terms of the guy who I think impressed me the most. There was guys I wish we got to see more of, and I think this is worth a shout because technically we never specified that this player had to have been playing for Tottenham. The guy who would have had the best preseason for me was Romero. I couldn't be happier to see him lift another trophy. Obviously, those are ours we live vicariously through Argentina. We get to now. And I totally own one of those trophies. When people ask me if I've seen my team lift the trophy, I'm like part Argentinian. But I shout out Romero. Getting another bit of hardware only proves how elite of a player he is, and how I'm glad.
And also for not singing that song on the bus.
Also an excellent point. As
also
sort of not being attached to all that, but
wait, we did win our trophy this preseason, didn't we?
Yeah.
Well, and then the whole thing came out of like when Madrid apparently approached him and Levy said it's either 150 mil or kick rocks. I'm like, I would probably have gone 200 mil at this point. The way I think of that guy, and he really, I think, is the lifeblood of the club. So it's like we'll shout him eventually, but he was kind of, again, a not Tottenham preseason guy I loved seeing.
Dude, I'm going to tell you, like, yeah, Archie was outrageous. I think, again, he could play kind of anywhere in that back half of the field.
You guys see his haircut?
No. Did he just get a new haircut?
He got
Romero or Archie?
No, Archie. I was not expecting this. He went from having like a little boy's haircut, like the floppy, long curly hair. He has like, it's like
Google this right now.
Like he's faded, a side fade, but it's like kind of like a mullet type thing. The haircut that a lot of people are getting now, like they got the side fade, but long in the back and on top.
Well, so my son has just adopted the fucking broccoli cut, which is what Archie had. Yeah.
Oh, that's a choice,
right? It kind of took me. All he needs a behind the ear tattoo, and he's gone full. Get out my way! I will go cleats up on you.
which we need more of,
It's
honestly,
true.
like so that Dragusin can get some more minutes.
Mhm.
Can I just one final point on who impressed in the preseason, and we already talked about him, Mike. I was going to add this on before, but I didn't have like a good kind of moment to add it. But Langshirt, the finishing, he just can't help. If he gets the ball in that area, he can't help finish. He's classy. I think.
Like I said, I don't think he's going to be a distributor. I think he's going to be a shooter.
Yeah. Oh, like, dude, just murder folks out there. Just score goals. That's all you got to do.
I think that's what he's got on.
And I think he's going to be great at it. But I think that, like, I was just so impressed. I think each of our youngsters had like a 1 to 5 minute period where it was clear that they were about to shit their pants, and all of them recovered and then crushed it. I think that's part of the problem of only playing them in like the 92nd minute is they don't get over the I'm going to shit my pants phase and they get into the actual game. So starting them in preseason, I think, is great. But I really think Langshirt he had a couple of games of like, I'm going to shit my pants in the first couple of minutes. But after that, he was just authoritative out there and his fucking finishing. I mean, he was already good, and now he gets to watch Sonny in practice every day. That was my last, Decky, Brennan Johnson, Langshirt. I guess I'm all about finishing this year.
You finish in the right place, Brian. Okay, I had to take it there. I'm sorry.
Oh man.
But I'm curious to see what Steve says, just because of his name on the pod tonight.
Ooh.
I'm glad you asked, Mike. Obviously, I agree with everything everybody has said so far, but one of the standouts to me was actually Jed Spence. He surprised me. Like, there were some of these guys, the Bergvall, I was hyped to see because I'd heard he would be good, and he was good. And Decky, he's been one of my favorites since he signed, and he continues to be good. Jed is one who I had written off completely, and he comes in and just looks like a completely transformed player. I don't know if it's just having that full preseason, but he looks like he's bought in. He looks like he's just going for it. He understands his role. When he was playing mostly on the right back, he actually looked really good. When he was forced to play left back defensively, he was lacking, but still going forward, unreal. I mean, he was sharp, he was quick, he was decisive, just fantastic to see. And especially with Emerson having moved on, like, to me, he just seems like a really fantastic backup to Pedro Porro right now.
I mean, like, how rare is it that a guy literally plays himself back into the squad? You're so right, Steve. It was so over. It's incredible. It was.
Yeah.
I had already forgotten that he was on the squad. I was just thinking, man, this is going to be another one of those guys we loan for 5 straight years, and then finally the contract ends.
Exactly.
It's like the most boring, drawn out, painful process. But I won't pretend.
Sessignon 2.0.
A great example. I mean, it's like I liked him too, but we all know how painful that whole process was for all parties involved. So I won't pretend that I even have a guess as to whether or not Spence can keep this going through the season. He's just a guy who it's impossible to predict. But for his sake and for the fact that it's essentially like having a new signing, it's like that takes care of our backup right back position. We know how we've talked about how valuable it'll be to have a deep team, and for him to just step into that role would be like immensely helpful.
Yeah, I mean, and I know that we're probably coming up on time, but like this, I think that
it's the start of the season, baby. We got to break some rules.
Can we go a little bit over tonight? Can we do this?
Let's go.
Let's fucking do this.
It's the start.
Dave, where are you? I'm an adult.
Yeah, we don't have the adults not in the room. The adults not in the room. Dad can't.
So there we go.
Lord over us and say it's time for bed, kids. Because I do want to talk about Jed a little bit, and I think it's a lot of what we didn't see out of Troy Parrott. Because I remember when I first met Brian at our friend Trey's house, and it was a weird realization that we both love Tottenham because we were watching the game together in his extra room there, and while they were all watching it out in the other room. and Brian and I were in our own little room in our own little space watching Tottenham together, and I think I had mentioned to Brian, like, I really love this Troy Parrott guy, and he goes, "Oh yeah, that's nice." Troy, it was like a Troy Parrott just never kind of never grew up and just kept kind of getting loan after loan after loan after loan
Yeah.
after loan, hoping that he was going to
He's
become
the Peter Pan of Tottenham Hotspur.
Yeah, they were hoping he was going to become HK10, right? It didn't happen. The Florida man. It didn't happen. It just didn't happen, and it still didn't happen. And sure, he went off. He went off and did his thing in the other spots when he got loans, and he grew up a little bit. But I think that Jed Spence took one season and said, "What do I want in my life?" And hopefully this sticks. But what do I want in my life? And he grew up a little bit, and I'm hoping that on that left side, that Destiny Udogie is nobody's going to supplant him. I mean, Jed can do what he wants to do and be as amazing as he wants to be. Destiny Udogie is a bully of a defender. There's not going to be many guys that are going to take him on, and he's going to hurt a lot of people's feelings this year. But Jed Spence, I think, can be kind of in that vein. And I talked about this last year with Pedro Porro, was that dude can't fucking defend, but he's young enough where he can learn to defend. And we saw, like, by the end of this season last year and even into this preseason, dude is fucking celebrating blocks and shit. Like, did you know? I don't know if you guys knew this stat. I looked it up the other day because of the conversation we had, Brian, where somebody accused me of saying that Pedro Porro was shit, which I never said.
Tottenham blasphemy right there.
Well, it was before. It was when he was first signed, but I never said it.
Yeah.
I never said it. I did say that
torched
he was
by
a shit. I said he was a shit defender.
Mhm.
But on this podcast, I did say that he's young enough that he can learn to defend, and if we have the coaches that can teach him to defend, I don't know if you guys knew this statistic. He had more blocks than any other defender in the Premier League last year, and it's not even fucking close.
That's awesome.
It's by like 12.
I definitely didn't know that, but it strangely doesn't surprise me though. Like, I do feel like watching his game, it has elevated to theirs more. There is definitely more of a defensive positioning at the very least. Like, I think that's where a lot of blocking comes from, is just being in the right place as it is.
Yeah.
And he has to have
And
learned
he did
so
do that.
much.
But also, like, in the Ange system though, it's also like it's recovery speed, right? That's why Mickey is so fucking good and just complete.
We found out Dragushin is fucking fast as shit too.
Turns out he's also made out of, like, Romanian
Adamantium.
bricks. Yeah. No, completely. I mean, you think about it. You've got, if you have Ramiro and Van de Ven, I would say the best center back combo in the Premier League, and I think actually of most, even the neutrals would generally agree that they've got to be in the running. And then you got, we're gonna have Porro, Udogie, and maybe a Jade Spence living up to his OG hype. Like, yes, please. Like, these are combos that can definitely be exciting and honestly could be daunting for other teams, which I'm pretty happy about. But Mike, just to your point, Ali Gold from Football.London got Ali's great. His actually, I can't stand Football.London. Their site is so, like, spammy with ads and shit. But Ali's it's like one of the only things I think I watch, like, every week is him on YouTube, just, like, spouting all the shit he's learned about Tottenham Hotspur that week. It's just, like, great. Like, sometimes he could probably use a better filter or editor, but it's awesome. And he got Ange on tape basically saying that, like, Jade Spence is part of our plans for next year. I mean, so it is official. The guy is, to your point, Tristan, you never see it. I think that's an excellent point. You never see someone like Brian Heel, right? Last year was like, I'm going to fight for my spot at Tottenham. And, like,
no, you're not.
Hey, listen, even if you weighed 95 pounds versus 90, you might have had a chance, but you don't. I think in this instance, this is a true He fought back for his, and also I think I haven't read too much about it, but we know from Ange's roles in Japan when he didn't even speak the language when he got there, but his Australian national team roles, about how good of a man manager he is of like inspiring people, appreciating them, being honest with them, but also telling them, like, getting better results out of them than was predicted. And a lot of it comes down to this combination of like belief in the system, belief that he's the manager that can take them there, and then belief in the individual that you have what it takes. You're going to have to execute. Like, we've heard that from every team he's ever managed. And I've been thinking about Jade Spence in this context of this is like Exhibit A, right? Like of all of it, his full gear at Tottenham, I can't think of anybody other than early season, maybe Yves Bissouma last year, who more took to the, like, I have faith in this man and I'm going to do things I'm going to run through walls for him. I think everybody's kind of on board with that, but I want this romantic story to come to a great conclusion. I want him to be a regular starter. I want him to have goals. I want him to have great contributions. It would be, forget like the financial, like all the vindication from like the club management side. It would be such like a great personal story of this guy who like had all this promise, went to a big club, fizzled out, and then fought his way back in. Yeah. Like, how beautiful is that? That's why we watch sports. That's why like a lot of the Olympics were so riveting, was NBC does a great job of telling you those stories throughout the, ridiculous length of their coverage.
Brian, I have to break this down into a reel, and it's going to be really fucking hard, man. Like, you just made so many great points. It's really going to be hard, and your face is going to be all over the Instagram. I just want you to know.
You see,
and the TikToks, maybe.
He went from Olympics. You said break it down, and now all I can think of is Olympic breakdancing. Which
let's not go there.
All right, we don't have time for that.
No.
Right. We do have a little bit more time than we normally do. I think we're going to go 30 minutes over, but Olympic breakdancing is not something we want to go, especially with Ange being from Australia.
Man, can I feel like the one, Steve, what is the one topic that we have not discussed yet that is top of every Tottenham Hotspur fan's mind?
Oh, Dommy. It's got to be Dom.
It's got to be, right? And so, I was so.
Steve didn't even get to answer. I'm sorry, Steve.
No, I was just sitting here like, let's see. There's the controversy surrounding Argentina. There's the controversy surrounding Benfica.
See
the controversy surrounding Yves Bissouma and his balloons.
Oh, the laughing gas.
Oh, the laughing gas. You know what?
You know what? As a fish fan, I appreciate an ice cold fatty every once in a while, right? I promised a friend of mine that I would say ice cold fatties. So,
man,
and you did it.
And I did it right here with SPURSY.
So anyway, Big Dom. He just signed. We have a striker again.
Extra beer, boys, just for the extra time.
We have a striker. We have a Tottenham record signing striker, I think, too, which is
Is that right?
Well, if with add-ons
right?
And shit, yeah.
Which, hey, if it's like part of the final package, at least I would say it exceeds the cursed Ndombele signing. I'm so glad that that's not the record signing anymore. I couldn't be not against Ndombele, but just it's nice that we get to start over again with our record signing. But
he's not going to be. He's not going to be Ndombele. We have a known quantity in Dominic Solanke. We know that obviously. His issues at Chelsea, his issues at Liverpool, it has a lot to do with the style of play and what he was being asked to do as a youngster, and what he was being asked to do at Liverpool. He's not the same player. I mean, Tristan, am I wrong?
Oh no, I don't think you're wrong at all. I don't think that's unfair to say. I mean, it says something that this was Ange's number one guy. I think that in itself is really, really impressive. We are backing a manager. I think that's been apparent for a couple windows now, to be fair to Levy, because Like if there's one thing I've been the most outspoken about, it's our owner. I've will admit till I'm red in the face that I've had my fair share of frustrating windows where I'm thinking he doesn't back us. He just is interested in making us like a go-kart club. He's more interested in hosting NFL games and F1 races than actually putting the money back into the club. But not to make this fully about him, but the fact that we had a guy on the market who was wanted by other clubs would have probably been taken by another club by now. And we took that seriously. I think it also helped. We knew there was going to be some exits this window, and we've been pretty diligent about getting rid of guys or sending out guys on loan if we need to. But I'm curious. The only question about Solanke I have right now is, do you guys think we'll see him against Leicester? Do you think he'll be our opening day striker?
I think he will be. I think he's going to slot right in. And I really think that, like, just to get back to the Brennan conversation, I think that Brennan is a guy who's like his stats, like Brian said, his stats they bear out. He's not a terrible player. He at times gave up some space. He at times had some bad crosses. Like obviously we have to work on our crossing into the box, that kind of shit. We have to work on our distribution into the box. But we have a guy. A lot of it was because we didn't have a guy who could get his head on the ball. Dom Solanke can get his head on the ball. And this is we've watched this guy. We watched this guy last year frustrate the shit out of us. But Brennan Johnson is going to be a guy who's going to come off the bench and run at people. He's fast as fuck, and he's going to hurt people, and he's going to get, like, every time he's out there, it doesn't matter if he's coming in a reliever role or if he's starting, he gets a goal or an assist almost every fucking game. And this is a guy who's going to come in and do the job, and he's going to be, I think Decky starts on the right wing, despite what we talked about earlier. I think Decky starts on the right wing. I think you got Dom Solanke up front, and I think that we finally have a guy. He led the league in heading the ball for goals last year. Solanke is a guy who I think presses better than maybe any other player in the league, any other center forward in the league. You look at the other center forwards, like the big giant center forwards in the league. Your Erling Haaland, who doesn't want to play any defense, doesn't want to do any pressing, doesn't want to do anything but kick the ball in the fucking net because he's a big fucking oaf. Fine, it works out for Man City that way because they have other players that do all that shit. I don't think there's going to be another center forward in this league, and if he doesn't work out, we have Richarlison sitting there too.
Well, that's the question, right? I think this is when you were talking. Was it you, Tristan, that said, like, is he going to be our opening center forward?
We do have a Brazilian on staff. We can call to play the 9. Like,
we have a Brazilian.
He doesn't. He's not your typical Brazilian, though. I mean, like,
true.
But I mean, so I think. Listen, I would much rather have an embarrassment of riches in center forward than
embarrassment of riches.
Oh,
hey.
Well,
hey.
Man. And that's my personal vote for episode title. But
I like
anyway,
it.
But no, listen. I think you're making great points. I think this is fundamentally, we go back to man management, right? This is a Richarlison question. I think he has proven himself to be pretty robust. Psychologically,
When healthy.
When healthy. Fair point. But again, not everybody's going to be. Anyway, our final thoughts, by the way, this is one of the ones I'm going to touch on. But the question does Ange Ball fundamentally rely upon injuries? Like, are injuries inherent to the Ange Ball system? But we'll get to that when we get to final thoughts. I guess what I would say is, I think it's a big affront to Richarlison to have a guy that we just signed who's never played with this first team, to have him be the opening day starter against Leicester City. I just think that I would, even if I knew I was going to go somewhere next season or in January or whatever, I'd be a little bit pissed off to be like, listen, I gave you literally, I played with a broken groin bone for half the season last year. and you're gonna do me like I don't think so. So I think politically or psychologically, whatever you want to call it, I don't think we can. If you're right, Mike, the ramifications are going to be very interesting to see how it plays out. I could see like a halftime substitution for Richie on the grounds of we have the Europa Cup now and whatever. But Richie has given nothing but his heart and soul. Just see his Instagram post from last week, right? When the Saudi deal fell through. He's staying. I mean, I think he's bought into the club. I think he wants to do well here. I can't believe I'm a Richarlison defender right now. But
well, he's not going to Saudi too because he's a very very and not to get into politics, but a very liberal person. So
also,
which is not necessarily par for the course with a Brazilian. So
plus now you see a lot of those guys who made Saudi moves. A lot of them are coming back. Jordan Henderson made a pretty immediate U-turn, and he's not the only one. So
he came back to Turkey.
You want to hold guys accountable for the decisions they made, but at the same time, I think now, luckily, the proof has been in the pudding, where it really is a decision that is not to be considered lightly, and there's a lot of other aspects that go into making a move like that. And I think guys now are just like over it. Rich is rich, and I'm rich. I don't really. Later on, maybe I'll think about it, but it's just a dangerous thing to do right now, I think, for a lot of reasons.
Yeah.
So, but also great that he's staying for that reason. And too, Richie's the best on Instagram too. It's like the most grainy, strange memes he'll post sometimes, which is so funny coming from an account with like 15 million followers. It's just good stuff. He's such a good follow.
Yeah,
he is. And honestly, like I had a coworker, one of our surgeons at work who said, who was an Everton fan. He said, "You're going to love Richie when he's available." And we all knew like he's the guy. Like I hated him when he was at Everton, hated him, but he's the guy who you love to hate when he's not on your team.
Yeah,
but you love to love him when he is on your team. Stevie,
but
what do you
say, Mike? Just on this point, and I'm sorry, I know you're going in a direction there, but just like I think, let's keep in mind that from January through March, Richie scored 9 goals in 10 games, right? And the reason that he ultimately got re-injured, like he had his surgery, he took his time off when we were free falling, and honestly, like fair play, like that was actually a good time for him to do that. But he scored 9 goals in 10 games, and then he got re-injured again because squad depth was not what it should have been. Squad depth is significantly better this season. I think like that's where my head is at.
That's where I'm going.
Rather than discounting him and thinking like there are economic reasons to offload him to a team that can pay for him, but practical game-winning reasons, I think it's going to be really nice to have him. And so if he and Slanky are one competing and two just alternating, like one does mostly Europe, one does mostly Premier League. Shit, what a good position to be in.
Or vice versa. I mean, it won't even matter.
Whatever.
And that's kind of what I was getting at with Steve is like, what is your take, Steve? Because we have, like we said, in this embarrassment of Richie's, I think that Richie, obviously he wasn't using the preseason. He's still kind of quote unquote injured. I think he ends up on the team sheet, oddly enough, but I don't think he starts. I don't think he plays. I think Solanke starts the season. I think, but getting back to Dom too, is that like, what do we know about Dom that we as Spurs fans are clamoring for right now? Because how do these other teams score goals on us, Steve?
Through us shooting ourselves in the foot, mostly.
Set pieces, right? Solanke is a phenomenal set piece defender, which is why he gets that, I think, that bump over Richie.
Outside of the set pieces, it's a lot of just stupid turnovers in dangerous areas. I mean, we saw a lot of that in preseason. Vicario passing to Bazuma, who had no idea what the fuck he was doing. I feel like Kasuma had another
Fresh off the
issue.
laughing gas, he was like, "Oh shit, I'm in the game right now."
Maybe that's why he was
Yeah.
stumped by his mind.
I went and looked. I went and looked back and looked at that. That was a lot of Vicario's fault, but we'll go with.
I mean, but that's a lot of what we've seen last year, right? They try doing something clever that maybe is traditionally how Ange wants to play, but like one person's not paying attention, they're not tuned in to what's going on around them,
Right.
and all of a sudden the other team slipped in and they've scored. It happens far too often, and yeah, there's the set piece issue as well. Um, but between the mistakes, the set pieces, I mean, look, I don't think we're going to find ourselves in a situation where we're going to be bragging about the number of clean sheets that we have at the end of the season. But I do think we're going to be set up in such a way where the vast majority of the teams in the league aren't going to be able to take advantage of those slip ups when they do happen. And we are going to punish way more than we concede. And you know, I think that's something that should be exciting, right?
Wasn't that one of those like Ange quotes from early in his managerial career? It was like, "Listen, mate, if you win 6-5, you still win."
Exactly. That means that we have to exciting fucking games.
You got to clear your throat in the middle of that, just so you next time you do it. It's a great Ange impression.
But I'm so sorry. I'm having lived in Australia and having Ange be my current favorite manager in global football. Yeah, I will. I'm trying to like tamp down the number of times I try to do an Ange impression, and I'll try to keep it very conservative on Wicked Spursy this season.
Yeah, this is Ange ball. We don't do anything conservative here.
Oh,
that's right. In fact, we have gone 15 minutes overtime, and
this is some progressive ass shit we got going on.
Super fucking progressive. Super progressive.
And you know, speaking of progressive, if you as a company wanted to sponsor us, our insurance ad spot is open and available. I can find ways to work progressive into a large number of talking points throughout the season, so just keep that in mind.
You know, I believe that.
Oh, Tristan doesn't know he's not getting paid for this, right?
Sorry, what?
Wait, what?
I gotta go immediately.
Yeah, we're gonna get strongly worded letters from Tristan's agent.
Later tonight, you all get Venmo requests for like $500 for me, or I'm like, yeah, that was my hourly, but you can just pay me whenever. It's all good.
Yeah, it's okay. We'll just divide it by a dozen and send out a request to the listeners.
Fair enough.
Please go find us for
maybe Adam and maybe Ross will donate to us.
It's a shame this had to end in a lawsuit immediately, but that's just how stuff works out sometimes.
You know.
You know what we need? We need to figure out a way to put like a virtual tin cup out there for people to throw their loose change into.
There you go.
I think Tristan mentioned it earlier. It's called Patreon.
Yeah, my Venmo handle across each of the front of our screens.
Maybe that's what I'll do instead
there you go. It'll be like around the horn, you know. We sure. Like every Venmo dollar we get is just you know, an endorsement of something we said.
Sure.
Money, please. Look, I will say just about anything for money. I'm pretty.
I'm glad this is recorded, Steve. That's. Okay, before we get to final thoughts, can I ask one question that I was looking to ask you guys?
Yeah.
You know, the schedule is out. They've done all their little weird messing around with it, what have you. There are you know, Premier League fixtures, there are FA Cup fixtures, there are Europa Cup, all that stuff. I'm just thinking, like, between now and I don't know, the next couple months, like between now and the new year, whatever, is there something based on, like, you know, developments in the Premier League, or is there a particular Europa Cup thing? Whatever. Is there something you're looking forward to? Because there are a variety of personal and professional fandom reasons that I have one that I'm particularly looking forward to, but I want to hear what people are looking forward to for this season.
I can share.
That's a great way to start. Like let's start our final thoughts on that.
Yeah, so what I'm looking forward to is a little match coming up very soon. I believe it would be the 24th of August. Now, you might be
Ooh.
asking why? What's so important about that match? Um, win, lose, or draw, I get to go and enjoy some lovely quality time with a very special co-host after that game, and I've been looking forward to this for months. Uh, this is going to be a great time. I hope we win, and then we can celebrate with drinks. But if we lose, I'll just bring a fifth and pass out somewhere in the woods behind your house. I don't know. Either way, I'm having a good time that day. So that's the first thing that pops to my mind when I think of what am I looking forward to in terms of fixtures this season.
I guess I have to go next because I'm sure Tristan doesn't understand what you're talking about. Tristan, we have a tradition that we have started a couple of years ago of what we call the Wicked Spursy barbecue. And it takes place at my house, and I know you. We added you onto the roster a little too late for it, but if you want to come August 24th at my place, it's always a great time. We're going to do this year will be the second year of the live podcast. We had a great crew last year. Fans, Gooner fans, Liverpool fans there, heckling us, talking trash to us, and also our Spurs fans choking out the other fans of the other teams. It was really fun. Brian didn't get to make it last year because we had a week coming up, a 5-day weekend coming up the following week that we all had to go to, which is the Fuckwits weekend.
Indeed.
But Brian did come the first year, and
along with Rose. So
along with Rose, who
is now was 3.5.
She was the hit of the party. She's always the hit of the party, and she's like her dad. She brings the energy. She brings attitude and sass. I can tell you that. But Wicked Spursy barbecue coming up in a couple of weeks. Tristan, if you want to come, you're absolutely invited. We'll talk about it. There's going to be beer. There's going to be food, and anybody who listens to us, if you want to come, DM us on Instagram, on Facebook.
He's got a big yard. He can accommodate dozens of listeners.
Dozens. I can tell you dozens and dozens and dozens of tents. In fact, it's a very big yard. But there's no pool. That's the only thing. That's the unfortunate thing. What I'm looking most forward to outside of the Wicked Spursy barbecue is the reaction on the faces of the people who think that the Ange project was a 1-year deal. There were some surprises for me, i.e. the playing of a lot of the youth players in the preseason. The surprises of the performance of the youth players in the preseason. And I really think this is going to be a really banner year. We got over the hump of the Ange training shit that we all know, like the injuries and shit that happened. All the new guys that come in are going to be injured, but the guys who were here in the previous year are not going to be injured. I think that Madison showed us in the last game against Bayern that he's back. I think that Madison will be back. I think he took it easy most of the preseason. That Bayern game, he was like, he did some shit that was like, oh yeah, I remember you before you got injured against Chelsea.
I told you that I think it was one of our final thoughts in one of our final episodes last season. The future of Tottenham Hotspur, I think, may orbit around the outside of James Madison's left foot and right foot.
Yeah,
'cause
I think that
those
James Madison.
outside foot passes are just so spiritual when he pulls them off.
Yeah, I mean, I think James Madison is gonna he's gonna show you, and I think a lot of it is because he's got that competition now. So that's kind of my final thought is
All
that
right.
Our number 10 in our hearts, our number 10 on his jersey, our number 10 on his in the program is going to be back this year, and I think it's going to cause a lot of people a lot of fucking trouble.
This is a tough one, and those are two really good picks, I think. And I can't believe I'm saying this on something that's recorded, but our Europa League return honestly is something that I very much look forward to. It's the air of many jokes, and I laugh at many of them, but like the hilarious, my club plays on Wednesdays and yours plays on Thursdays. There's always that jeer. We get the end of the week games, but there is something so beautiful, I think, about a group stage Europa League game against a club that is impossible to pronounce, you've never heard of. There's like blackouts during the stream at the stadium.
How do you
and
split?
It sounds like there's commotion going on outside of the stadium where the game is being played, and you're like, I'm not quite sure where this is in the world right now. But I've looked very much forward to the competition, and especially having like for me, the darkest time at Spurs was the Conte period. And I know that that'll be maybe a hot topic because we've had maybe worse teams in the past, but to me, that was when I felt the least connected to the club. We had a manager who widely disliked us, widely disrespected us to press, felt he was too big for any stage that was set in front of him, and then treated the Europa League as such. So of course we didn't play well, and of course we have bad Europa League memories, is because usually management didn't really want to be there either. So we have a guy now that I think all fans can appreciate in certain ways. And I, for one, am so grateful that Ange is a part of our club, and we get to go into this Europa League with a guy who wants to win it and sees the importance in winning it and sees it as the golden opportunity that it really is. Because it's like, it's a big joke until you win it. And then all of a sudden it's really impressive that we got that far. So that might, oddly enough, be the competition I paid the closest attention to. I would love to see a good Prem campaign, a good FA Cup run, but I would love to see us make some European noise this year. It would really make me happy.
And arguably, I think Brian and I will both say that arguably that was because Brian and I followed it very, very closely last year. The Europa was almost more interesting and more fun to watch than Champions League was.
Seriously.
Oh yeah, the round of 8 was like kind of a snooze fest in the Champions League a lot of the time.
Yeah,
I think noticeably the competition dropped in entertainment, and it's like Madrid in a way is almost getting boring to watch now. It's like I just don't care about watching them in the final. I know they're going to win 2-0 and that'll be it. But
they're going to be even more. They're going to be even more boring when Levy tells them again that you cannot have Christian Romero.
Yeah, right. I hope so.
No, I think the number of 1-0 draws in the round of 8 in the Champions League was just like I was like, well, all right, this isn't. And like, there's a 1-0 draw that's wildly dramatic, and there's a 1-0 draw that is like, that was maybe the best match I've ever seen in my life with a dramatic ending or dramatic goal or whatever. Europa League had a lot more of those last year, so I'm with you, Tristan.
Mm-hmm.
But I just if I had to pick. I just find the situation of Newcastle just so interesting because they were so excited to have functionally unlimited money be able to be funneled into the club with no penalty and no, basically it was like we can buy our way into being the greatest team in the world using functionally unlimited Saudi, I'll put my cards on the table, Saudi blood money, frankly. And I feel so complicated about this because Newcastle are a long-suffering club. They had the worst manager in top flight European football for how long? 30 years?
30 years, easy.
Easily 30 years, and just to be a proud club that has achieved European glory. I mean, really for a long time, one of the big teams to suffer the indignity of a money-grubbing, idiotic, egotistical, I know better than you manager or owner for that
Owners,
long,
right? Yeah.
is just I truly feel for them. At the same time, there's not a government in this world that I think I dislike that much more than the Saudi government. That is doing. I mean, you're talking like Russia, China, Saudi Arabia in terms of like, countries that are trying to dismantle a free and democratic and liberal world order. And the only reason two of the three of them can do that is through oil money. And what they're trying to do with all those excess profits is to diversify their, imaging campaign. So when the House of Saud bought into Newcastle, and I'm just talking geopolitics here.
Oh, we know.
I was an international relations major with a focus on global security at the college I went to. So this is like, I come by this honestly, I guess I would say. I had that same mixed feeling. I was happy for the long-suffering fans. I get it why you would be excited, but also I wanted them to lose every fucking game from now until the end of time, because that regime is evil to its people, to its region, and to the world at large. Some would even say to the religion that is based there, but that we're not going to get into that one. So I guess when it comes to financial fair play, and when it comes to the PSR rules, all that good stuff, Spurs were in the number one position at the start of the season, slightly modified. But in general, Tottenham have been a very well-managed club and have operated under a general, profit and loss balance sheet, and have conducted themselves very well, sometimes to the displeasure of us, the fans, when we were like, can you just please splash some goddamn cash, right? And so I feel like this season in particular, with these new rules in place, and again, I like that team. I really like their manager. I like their supporters. One of which in particular is a really good friend of ours, Mike and mine. But it feels like the clash of the two ends of the spectrum of financial good management in Newcastle and Spurs on Sunday, September 1st, which Mike and our friend Natalie and I will be watching together on Lake Bomazine in Vermont.
Beautiful.
Anyway, but I think that dynamic, the financial fair play, the PSR, all that stuff is really going to rule our lives in the future. And this seems to be such like a crystallizing match of quite literally the top and the bottom of the teams that are doing that well. Chelsea's like the second to the bottom, I think, in terms of that metric. But anyway, thank you for coming with me on that one. That was a little long-winded, but there's a lot of reasons I think that Sunday, September 1st is going to be a historic match in some capacity.
Brian, that was like a Disney diorama ride. It was wonderful.
Yeah. Hopefully, and now that match itself, speaking of like the gameplay, has become such a cursed match for Spurs too. Like the Newcastle match is now just for so many reasons like such a dreaded fixture now, and I hate that.
Let's get it out of the way. We're going to St. James Park. It's an away game. Let's get it out of the way. If we're going to have some season-ending injuries, at least it's the third game.
Yeah, right. At least we saw him for a couple matches.
At least we had a couple of moments of glory. But thank you. Sorry, that was a little diatribe.
I'll let Steve take us out of this.
Steve, you can edit that one out.
Play us out.
I'm the editor, sir.
Oh, sorry, Mike. You can also edit this out.
It's staying in.
It's staying in.
Well, it's been quite a ride. The season kicks off for Spurs this upcoming Monday versus Nicky Wink's own Leicester City. I'm really excited for this, but with our actual honest-to-God final closing thoughts, let's go just right around and let's hear what everybody's thinking in just a few sentences or less.
Honest to God, final thoughts. Here we go.
Honest to God, here we go.
Honest to God.
Wrap it up.
Spurs need to make 71 points this year. 71 points. It's going to be a fucking wild ride. The top 8 teams, so the top 8 teams are going to make Europe, right? Whether it's Conference League, whether it's Europa, whether it's Champions League, top 8 teams are making it. There are fucking 10, 11 teams that are in the mix. I think that Bournemouth is still going to survive in this league, even without Dominic Solanke, who's going to score 13 to 15 goals for Tottenham Hotspur this year. But I think that like you're looking at probably the most competitive English Premier League season that you're going to see in a long time. Manchester United just signed a couple of players for like $350 fucking million that will probably do no good because they don't fit in the Ten Hag system. So fuck them. I think the Gooners are going to be fucking good again this year. City's still going to be good. So you know your top 5 are going to be the top 5. I think Villa takes a step back, even though they spent 115 million on 2 players, just as Newcastle did, and I think Newcastle's in the mix too. I think there are a lot of teams in the mix. I think the end of the season, my prediction for the end of the season is going to be 1, 2, 3, 4. I think Arsenal wins the league, unfortunately, and we have to listen to those fucking idiots. But I think it's going to be Arsenal, City, Liverpool, Spurs.
Mike, what was the ABV on that beer?
22.4.
Was it really? All right.
No.
That's so
Eight-
cursed.
8.1.
I
Spurs
understand.
make top 4, and unfortunately, I think Arsenal's gotten better, but there's like again so far into their project that if they don't finish top 4, Arteta is gone.
I hated that most of last season was me wanting Arsenal to lose. I was thinking back on that too. It was such an exciting time for Spurs, but I spent far too much of last season hate watching Arsenal, which is like an all-time favorite activity for fans like us. But even at a point, I was like, this is starting to feel like it's a little sad. Like I'm sort of peeking around the corner a little bit too much to see what's going on in that room. You know, we have a really exciting project. I feel I've never felt so excited about the team, honestly, going into a season 2. There's players across the board I truly love watching, and I feel so lucky to see they're putting on a Tottenham shirt. I think we have seriously dealt with a lot of crap in recent years. We've had our fair share of hardships. I think they've outweighed the wins, even the little ones. But I think we'll finish 4th this year. I think we'll see a improved brand of the same football we saw last year, hopefully with some more good performances. But I'm just making a promise to myself now that I think the goal should be 4th. So if we finish 4th, that's a good season for us. And I'm not going to go, we should have finished 3rd or we could have got 2nd. Even if that is the case, I think I try and hold myself accountable while as much as I hold the players accountable each year. You know, I think that's important to set those good boundaries. But again, it's like I feel like I'll say this most seasons, but I've never been so excited to watch us kick a ball this year. I think it's vibes are excellently high. We have a great youth core. There is an unlimited amount of things to like about this team.
Excellent.
Good deal.
Brian, how about you?
I was gonna go with my whole are injuries inherent to Ange Ball.
We forgot about
thing.
So much shit.
But which I think, you know, it's something for us to think about, you know, particularly in our relationship to the players. Are they just churnable, you know, cogs in the wheel, or are they, you know, people that we value? And like, is there an inherent danger to them by playing Ange Ball? Now, I looked it up, by the way. There are many players that have played every minute of an entire season for Ange and not gotten injured. So there's that. But also, this is the Premier League. It is the most competitive, the most physical league in the world. So that is on my mind. And I think it's worthy of us to all think about in terms of our relationship to this thing that we love. And I will say, here's my final 5 in order: Tottenham, City, Arsenal, West Ham, Liverpool. We've
think
recorded
that's
this now.
interesting.
It's out there. I think there's justification for it.
West Ham are
Um,
cooking this offseason very,
oh,
very much.
Man, and their additions, they're going to be scary. They are actually. I look at this schedule and I'm like, based on like the totality of what I've seen in this preseason, there aren't a ton of teams that scare me. Even like Arsenal, we all know they're very good. City, we know they're very good. There is a definite possible X factor about West Ham that might make them a giant killer this season, and I'm like
They're-
I'm a little bit concerned about it.
They're blowing bubbles.
Aren't
And
they always?
And Bubbles is the dog. There, I said it.
I think they're a dark horse. So, but So Spurs, City, Arsenal. Who did I say?
West Ham.
West
Spurs.
Ham, Liverpool, Villa.
Liverpool. Yeah.
I don't think of first season under a new manager, unless he's Ange Postecoglou, you can't hope for similar levels of glory. But anyway, those are my final thoughts, Steve.
I liked it.
It's been
That
a
was
long
good,
one,
that was
boys.
good. How about you, Mike?
I just did mine. I'm done.
What's the ABV
Did
on
you
your beer,
Final thoughts? Huh?
Final thoughts.
This is 6.4%.
I've had a bunch tonight, so
It's quite nice.
yeah. So Steve, I just want to know if Dave were here, he would ask you, Steve, what do you have to say?
Coys.
And
Don't be an asshole. And now that you mention it, Mike, if Dave were here, he would also look to you for a couple of things. One of which being,
if it's been really hot out there, guys. Triple E has been found in the mosquitoes around here. We really have to watch out for ourselves. So if you're going to come to the Wicked Spursy barbecue, I just want to make sure that if you're going to be here, you put on your mosquito repellent and some sunscreen, and just be safe.
and
Tottenham Hotspur action. It's fantastic.